This is this podcast with two guys that haven't got a clue about anything.
Yes, two guys who don't seem to know an awful lot. Thank you, Stuart Mitchell.
Two guys who don't know. We talk a lot about shit.
We do, don't we? Thank you, Stuart Mitchell of Catch the Mice, for doing the voice. And
that's a great name. Nice. I like that.
Catch the Mice. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it? It's cool. But anyway,
there was a marketing company in Seattle. I don't know if they are still around. They were like an agency, and their name was the Wexley School for Girls, and it was brilliant.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just, you heard it and you were like, what?
Yeah. Oh, there is a website, event company, and it's called Event It. But when you look at the domain name, it looks like even. I laugh every time I look at it.
Hey, now it's a family-friendly program.
Yeah, well, mind your language then. Anyway, this is despite the intro, this is actually just a quick, because we've been watching a video by Social Media Examiner about getting more attention from Facebook and how there's a distinct alert in a particular way. And the video that we're going to talk about is going to be embedded in the blog post. So check out the blog, watch the video, then listen to this. So if you haven't watched it yet, pause, watch it, and then come back.
Yeah, and I think it's important because one of the things I see with a lot of companies in the event industry, as well as conferences and a lot of associations, is they go about just posting things on Facebook. And I'll say randomly, but they have a method to their madness, but when they are not getting the reactions and the engagements they want, you can like literally see them. If you go all the way back to the beginning when they started, there'll be a couple posts a day, and then a post a day, and then every 3 days, and a week, and a month.
Tail off as they find they're not getting what they hoped they would get in the way of engagement.
Yeah.
And also the problem I think a lot of them are doing is the content they're posting on Twitter is adapted for use on LinkedIn. The LinkedIn content is then just copy and pasted onto Facebook. It no longer works like that. You cannot do it in that way of just rubber stamping the content for every platform. Every platform is different and has different requirements and different audiences.
Yeah. And we all fall victim to it. I mean, we all do it. Right. You know, if I am in a hurry doing company stuff, I mean, you know, we're better at obviously telling clients and things how to do these things. I mean, but when you get caught up and you're busy, I get it. Right. But there has to be a better method and there has to be a better way to do things.
And this is what Michael Stelter. Okay, him. This is what he basically explains in the video. So up to now, the normal engagement has dropped right off because Facebook has committed to less business stuff, less advertising, more friends and family. So whatever you thought you were doing right, you no longer are doing it right.
Yeah, and in the video, you know, he kind of walks through, this is really the cool part of the video, right? Where he walks through everything that Social Media Examiner did and what failed, right? And here's where I actually have a disagreement with him. So he walked through, they did live videos, they did this, they did that, and they weren't getting the engagement. So basically what happened was if those things weren't working, they abandoned them. Whereas I think that those are legitimate posts and I think that those are great posts. I think you have to use what he was saying to get the eyeballs on the page. But then I do think that live videos with speakers are a great idea. I think that pre-recorded videos from, you know, speakers and sponsors and attendees are great. I think that you use his method to get the eyeballs and get people engaged on the site but still show them those other things, because this is so true of me. I will watch your video on your Facebook page. I will read what you post on your Facebook page. I just don't engage with it. And I think a lot of people are like that.
Yeah, yeah. But don't forget what he was talking about, or what he does talk about in your video, is trying to get people to leave Facebook to go to the website to read.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more people he has going to the Facebook content, and I guess seeing banner ads. I mean, they've got to fund themselves somehow. But for the event people, again, it depends on your intent. But I think in principle, what he's tried and failed and now finds working to understand and to put into practice.
Yeah, well, and tell everybody what is their method. And this is going to be hard to do because we have to describe it in an audio format.
Oh, yeah. So basically, the temptation, I think, up to now has been for people to put overly complicated images to go with the, well, it's a link, isn't it? Basically, they're posting a link to a web page, and they're putting in a graphic that might be heavily branded, might have all sorts of things going on, and that's not currently working. It's not getting an engagement. What he's doing is it's basically a very plain background, almost wallpaper-like. I mean, actual wallpaper on a wall, wallpaper kind of image.
Yeah, those things in the when you go into Facebook and you put color behind your text.
Exactly, that kind of thing. And then it's a kind of not so much of a question and not so much of a statement, but something that gets you to engage.
Yeah,
you know.
And I have a good example of it. So
yes.
if you wrote a post on the top 10 incentive destinations, normally people would put a post in Facebook that would say, hey, here's a list of our top 10 incentive destinations, and then people would put the link, and then that would pull in a little bit of text. You would pull in the image or whatever from the link. Well, they've changed it to be a question with that colored background where it would say, what are your favorite incentive destinations? That gets the engagement portion of it, and it's nice and bright and colorful. And then they'll put in the comments, they put here, to find out what our favorite destinations are, click this link.
And that's what's making a difference, Examiner. The simplified image with a plainish background with text on top, and then the link is a comment.
Yep.
And as I say, in the video, explains just how well it's working for them now.
Yeah, and apparently it's working really well. Now, we actually have a client that's willing to throw that into their mix. I actually was talking to it the other day, and they were like, "Wow, that's really cool. We'll try that." And so they're actually going to try that on a few of their posts, which I think it'll be an interesting thing, because it'll be an interesting test to see how well it works for meetings and events. I mean, I think that'll be cool. Let's see.
The thing is, it's something that is worth testing, but obviously not for a short period. You must give it a certain amount of time, measured in months, not days or weeks. You need to try it for a few months just to see if you can get that sort of, you can measure the improvement, either using like Google Analytics, engagement, whatever measurement you're using. You're going to have to do this over a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You just can't simply throw it in and hope for the best.
So because we're bullet listing, do we have some other tips for folk with their Facebook marketing?
Okay, so the first tip, I suppose, in this list would be try out the Social Media Examiner's solution, because it seems to be working for them. Simplified image, a question in the form of a big blocky text, and a link in a comment. The second thing I would say is, why not just create a group? Groups can be very powerful, especially if you can get enough people in, and you can get somebody to spend time in a group, posting questions, interacting, and trying to get the engagement up. When you do post something of interest that you want people to go and read on your website, or you want some sort of action taken, well, if you've already got a captive audience in a group who already like what you do, then it's going to be a lot more easier than it is, hoping for the best for a post on a page.
Well, and I think, with groups too, when you start your group, seed that group, get buy-in from some vocal folks in your industry, whatever it happens to be, and get them to buy into the group, because that way it starts off active. I say this a million times for a lot of different things, but nothing attracts a crowd like a crowd. And, you can throw things up there in a group and no one, you might get crickets. But if you have those people who are extremely vocal and will comment on things, that makes life even if they're plants, right? It's okay. If they're in the industry and their opinion matters, it doesn't matter that you've asked them to comment on something.
True. And if you've got somebody who loves what you do, your number one huge, great fan, put them in a group, reward them with, I don't know, gifts, goodies, advantages, or something that rewards them for their efforts. That
Absolutely.
That helps.
So my tip, or one of my tips anyway, is do not use Facebook for the hard sell. And what I mean by that is so many groups, especially for meetings and events and conferences and trade shows, will just, all their posts are, the early bird rate ends now. The early bird rate ends now. The early bird rate ends now. Tomorrow, the early bird rate ends. And that's literally all their posts. And it doesn't matter how much I love your organization. If that's all you're posting, I'm out of there.
There's a furniture company in the UK called MFI. Everybody takes the mickey out of them because every week, and it's been forever, every week, sale must end Friday, and it always has done. So you end up sort of going, yeah, whatever, and you take no notice. So if your Facebook feed is full of early bird now, who's going to look?
Yeah, I mean, there's a rug store a couple miles from here that they've been having a going out of business sale for like 10 years.
But the silly thing is, I bet it really works for them as well.
Well, it must if they keep doing it. Right.
Yeah, I'm sure the sales guy is going, actually, we've done rather well next week. Let's put it off till next week.
Yeah,
we're doing all right.
Yeah, now the kids are in the business and it's still going on.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, there's one last tip I would give, which is it's not all about you. Please mix in content about what nobody's a competitor anymore. So if somebody in your space is doing rather well at something, share the love. Do it.
Yeah, we actually have a client that is not afraid of their competitors. Their competitors, they think their shows are great. And they will literally talk about their competitor show. Like they'll be like, "Hey, did everybody go to this show? It was really great. We had and their page is super active, right? Because people know that if they follow their page, they can get information not only about the one show that the group puts on, but they'll also get information about other shows, right? They are totally all in on their industry, not their single event. And and they share other stuff as well. But I mean, I really think it's cool when, I'll go to their page for whatever reason and I'm looking and they're talking all about their competitor's show and how great it was. And I'm like, oh.
That's because, as you said, they're in the same space. And so why not? And people know that this must be a bunch of good guys because they keep saying nice things about everybody else.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And I think my final one tip would be, in this day and age, you have to pay to promote things on Facebook.
Oh yeah, pay to play. Now.
It is.
Well, it has been for a long time. Has been really got into it.
Yeah. And now, I said don't do the hard sell, but when registration opens or when you're legit ending your early bird, whatever it happens to be, of course you should post that, right? I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying don't do it all the time. But those are the types of posts that you are going to want to promote, right? And I'm going to add a caveat to that one. The other thing is if you're paying to promote it, measure it, because if you don't measure what the outcomes were from that post, it didn't actually happen.
Yeah. Got to measure.
Yeah, gotta measure. You have to tell people exactly what you want them to do. Register now, click this link, like this post, comment, right? You've got to tell people what you want them to do. And then you can go back and you can say, did we achieve X on this post because X amount of people did this?
Yeah. So when we talk about engagement and taking action, we're not talking about what Google Analytics is telling you. You need to be able to take the trail from Facebook and that post to an action that happens like on the registration page. If you can link up the two, you know you're being effective. Don't worry about the middle bit with Google Analytics. Yeah, it's great that 1,000 people looked at your page, but you want to know, did the 20 people who just spent money actually come from Facebook? Because then you know it either worked or it didn't.
Well, and we can, one of the things we use UTMs, which are just a way to track a link that people click. And so that is the link that goes into Facebook. And then when someone clicks that link, it quietly puts a reference code on the back of the registration form. The attendee doesn't see it, but it goes onto the back of that registration form. And then that way, when their social media folks sit down, they can say, okay, we know that on this Facebook post, because that's in the link, we know that 500 people clicked that link. And from that, we know that 400 people registered. That's a great post, right? And then the flip side is true. If you know that 500 people clicked the link, but 2 people registered, you know that was not very effective.
Yeah, unless you measure whether you need to improve or modify, whatever it is it takes to get more people clicking. If you don't measure, you don't know. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bullet List Show. You can find more episodes on our blog at bullet-list.com or on your favourite podcast platform. The blog has an RSS feed so you can keep up with the latest news. There's also a podcast RSS feed if that's what you prefer. Both feed URLs can be found on the blog. Finally, we have a Facebook group where we welcome your feedback, ideas for topics, and suggestions for guests. Please come and join us. We're looking forward to seeing you there.